On the day Ethan Walker and I were supposed to get married, his phone stayed off from morning until night. At 9 that morning, I sat inside the Clark County Marriage License Bureau in downtown Las Vegas, wearing the white dress he had chosen for me. We had completed the online pre-application together and agreed to meet at 9:30, show our identification, receive our marriage license, and then walk next door for a short civil ceremony. Nevada had no waiting period. If two people appeared together, presented valid identification, and signed the application, they could receive a license and marry the same day. I had checked my passport, driver's license, simple bouquet, and both wedding bands 3 times before leaving home. At 10, the clerk called our last names for the second time. At 11, the civil marriage office called to ask whether we wanted them to release our reserved ceremony slot. At noon, the hard desert sunlight poured through the glass and reached my shoes. Ethan still had not appeared. I called him 27 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. The receptionist at Northbridge Technologies said Mr. Walker had not come into the office. His driver said Ethan had taken his own car that morning. His office manager stammered through 3 different explanations without giving me a single useful answer. A little after 1, I opened Instagram and saw a new story posted by Ethan's executive assistant, Maya Reed. Ethan was sitting in Maya's Henderson apartment with an expensive gift basket and an armful of flowers beside him. He was peeling an orange for an elderly woman while Maya held his arm and smiled at the camera as though they had belonged together for years. Her caption read, "Family pressure got intense. Thank you to the world's kindest boss for stepping in as my fake boyfriend and meeting grandma. She finally agreed to take her medicine." I stared at the picture until the words stopped looking real. That morning, Ethan had texted that he was already on his way. He had told me not to be nervous. After the ceremony, he had promised to come with me to the Bennett estate in Summerlin for dinner and sit at my parents' table for the first time as family. Apparently, when he said he was on his way, he meant he was on his way to become another woman's boyfriend. A clerk approached me carefully. "Ms. Bennett, your co-applicant still hasn't arrived. Would you like us to cancel the pre-application and release your ceremony time?" I looked down at the wedding band in my palm. 7 years earlier, Ethan had found me crying behind the university bleachers after a group of girls decided the foster kid turned Bennett heiress was an easy target. He had handed me a tissue and told me that as long as he was around, no one would hurt me again. Later, when he started Northbridge, I lived with him in an apartment where the heater barely worked. I rewrote pitch decks until 3 in the morning. I invested the first real savings I had ever earned. I built models, introduced clients, and defended his ideas when no one else took him seriously. I had believed this day would be the ending of those 7 difficult years and the beginning of the rest of our lives. Instead, Ethan had decided I could wait. Maya's grandmother could not. Our marriage license could be obtained another day. Maya's lie had to be protected immediately. "Cancel it," I told the clerk. I slipped my engagement ring into its box and closed the lid. That was when a familiar voice spoke behind me. "Claire Bennett." I turned. Adrian Hayes stood near the entrance in a black overcoat, the cool air from outside still clinging to him. He had just flown in from New York. His assistant waited several steps behind him, but Adrian himself carried the lunch my mother had asked him to deliver. The Hayes and Bennett families had known one another for decades. I was 12 when I entered the Bennett's licensed foster home, and Adrian was 17. Everyone else had treated me with careful kindness, as if I were a guest made of glass. Adrian was the only person who had found me hiding in the garden and said bluntly, "If you don't feel like smiling, then don't. You don't have to earn your place in this family by pleasing everyone." He later left for college on the East Coast and eventually took over international investments for Hayes Group. We did not see each other often, but whenever he returned to Las Vegas, he always brought something my mother had asked him to deliver. His eyes moved from the empty chair beside me to the Instagram story still glowing on my phone. "He didn't come?" I turned off the screen. "He went to be someone else's boyfriend." Adrian was silent for several seconds. He did not comfort me. He did not insult Ethan. He simply placed the lunch in front of me. "Eat something first. Then I'll take you home." That restraint hurt more than sympathy would have. I looked at him and remembered a Sunday dinner at the Bennett house the month before. Henry Hayes had once again pressured his grandson to date seriously. Adrian had leaned back in his chair and said that if the family refused to stop arranging introductions, he might find someone he trusted, sign a fair prenuptial agreement, and enter a practical marriage that suited them both. "Do you still need a wife?" I asked. Adrian's gaze snapped to my face. People moved all around us, but for the first time that day I could hear my own heartbeat clearly. "Claire," he said slowly, "you're hurt. I can take you out of this building, but I won't make a permanent decision for you while you're in pain." "I'm thinking clearly." I held his gaze. "I'm not doing this to make Ethan jealous. I'm not trying to prove someone else wants me. I just realized I've already waited 7 years. I refuse to waste an eighth." He still did not agree. "You need your family to stop arranging dates. I need to end a relationship that should have ended long ago. We keep our finances and careers separate. If, after 1 year, the marriage doesn't work, we leave without destroying each other." I raised my chin. "Are you brave enough to do it?" Something moved in his eyes, too fast and too deep for me to understand. After a long silence, he asked, "Last chance. Are you sure?" I pushed Ethan's ring to the bottom of my bag. "I'm sure." Adrian did not take me straight to the counter. First, he asked his assistant to find a family law attorney who had no business relationship with Hayes Group. The attorney spoke to me alone by video, explained Nevada marriage law, separate and community property, and the legal consequences of divorce, then asked me several times whether anyone had pressured me. Only after I confirmed that the choice was mine did Adrian and I submit a new application and appear together at the counter. A canceled ceremony slot opened that afternoon. We carried our newly issued license into the civil marriage office. When the officiant asked us to stand closer for the photograph, Adrian did not touch me. He lowered his voice. "May I?" I nodded. His shoulder barely brushed mine when the camera flashed. At 3:47 p.m., I held a signed copy of our marriage certificate. The official record would be filed after the officiant returned the paperwork to the county clerk, but the signatures were real. The ceremony had happened. Adrian handed me the documents and our photograph. "You can reconsider every choice you made today," he said quietly. "But for as long as this marriage exists, no one will treat you like the option who can be left waiting forever." Ethan finally arrived at the restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip at 6 that evening. I sat near the window while Adrian stepped outside to take a call. Neon lights had begun to glow beyond the glass. The food on the table had gone cold. Ethan rushed in with sweat at his temples. He looked at my face, then bent and reached for my hand in the same gentle way he always did after disappointing me. "Claire, I'm sorry I'm late." I pulled my hand away. "You weren't late. You never came." He paused, then sat across from me and softened his voice. "Maya's grandmother is sick. This morning she suddenly demanded to meet Maya's boyfriend and refused to take her medication until Maya brought someone home. Maya doesn't have any other family in Nevada. What was I supposed to do? Stand there and let an old woman make herself worse? So you became Maya's boyfriend." It was an act. He frowned as if I were deliberately misunderstanding him. "I meant to text you, but I forgot to charge my phone last night and it died on the way over. I thought I'd stay for lunch and then come straight back. Her grandmother became unwell, so everything took longer." He said it so smoothly that anyone listening might have assumed we had missed an unimportant lunch reservation rather than our marriage ceremony. "We can apply for another license any day," he said, reaching toward my face. "You've always been compassionate. You can't seriously blame an elderly woman for this." I looked at him. "Do you know how many times I called you? I know you were worried." "Tomorrow. We'll go tomorrow." "There is no need." He blinked. "What do you mean?" I took the signed marriage certificate and ceremony photograph from my bag and placed them on the table. The paper made almost no sound, but Ethan's face changed instantly. His eyes moved over the license number, the signatures, and the photograph. Then he forced a laugh. "Where did you get fake documents?" "Claire, this isn't funny." I pushed the certified copy toward him. The names Claire Bennett and Adrian Hayes appeared side by side. The date was today. Ethan stopped breathing for 2 full seconds. Have you lost your mind? He shot to his feet, sending his chair scraping across the floor. I was delayed for a few hours, so you married the first man you could find? He wasn't the first man I could find. The door opened behind us. Adrian returned carrying my wrap. He did not challenge Ethan or make a show of standing beside me. He simply draped the wrap over my shoulders. The air conditioning is cold, he said. Don't get sick. Ethan stared at him. Adrian Hayes? Adrian finally looked up. Mr. Walker. You planned this together. Ethan turned on me, panic appearing in his expression for the first time. You were already involved with him, weren't you? You were preparing to marry me while secretly seeing Adrian. What right do you have to accuse me of anything? Adrian's expression hardened. I put a hand on his wrist before he could answer. Before 9 this morning, I intended to marry you, I said. At 1, I saw you at Maya's apartment. You never appeared, so our application was never completed. Only after that did Adrian and I submit a new application and hold a ceremony. The timeline is clear. This is revenge. No. Revenge would require me to care how you reacted. I don't. I stood. Ethan stepped in front of me. 7 years, Claire. You're throwing away 7 years. I didn't throw them away. You did, when you want to be another woman's boyfriend while I waited to become your wife. His lips parted, but nothing came out. Tomorrow, I'll collect my belongings from your apartment. My lawyers will also review my role at Northbridge, my shares, and Northbridge's license to Astra Data's intellectual property. From now on, contact me only when business requires it. Don't use the company to punish me. I almost laughed. Even now, the first thing you're afraid of losing is the company. Adrian opened the door for me. Before following, he looked back at Ethan without triumph or anger. She wasn't stolen from you, he said. You pushed her away, and then she chose me. On the drive to the Bennett estate, I held the marriage certificate so tightly that the edge marked my palm. Once the shock faded, anxiety took its place. I had entered the Bennett family at 12. Before the age of 26, the most rebellious thing I had ever done was insist on dating a man my parents believed lacked stability. Now I had married Adrian without warning them. The car passed through the gates of the Summerlin estate and stopped before the main house. Red Rock Canyon glowed dark red in the setting sun. I did not move to get out. Adrian unfastened his seatbelt, but did not rush me. Regret it? No. I looked at the house. I'm afraid they'll think I've caused another problem for the family. He watched me for a moment. Claire, you are not a problem the Bennetts have to manage. I said nothing. When I was 12, the aunt who had cared for me died, and I entered Nevada's foster system. The Bennett Foundation funded programs for foster children and teenagers aging out of care. Eleanor Bennett met me through one of those programs. It was true that I resembled her late biological daughter, Madeline, around the eyes. But the Bennetts had not brought me home on impulse. For 6 months, they visited me at the agency. Then they became licensed foster parents, completed background checks and home studies, accepted social worker visits, and eventually went through the courts to adopt me. They gave me excellent schools and a secure home. They rarely criticized me, but they rarely asked much of me either. Richard nodded when I brought home perfect grades. Eleanor took me shopping, but always kept an almost painful distance, as though she feared standing too close. I decided they had taken me in because I looked like the daughter they lost. I assumed their restraint meant I could never truly become her. Richard, Eleanor, and Henry Hayes were waiting in the living room when we entered. Adrian had clearly asked his assistant to notify them. Henry rose, lifted his cane, and pointed it at Adrian. You kidnapped Claire from the marriage bureau and married her? Adrian did not move. She asked me. The cane froze in the air. Everyone looked at me. I placed the license and certificate on the coffee table. It was my idea. Ethan didn't come. He went to Maya's apartment, and I decided I wouldn't wait anymore. Richard's expression darkened. How long were you there alone? More than 4 hours. His teacup struck the table hard enough to make me straighten instinctively, bracing for anger. But he closed his eyes and exhaled. When you said you wanted to marry him, I disagreed. Even so, the Bennett family office completed its review of a possible investment in Northbridge. Thank God nothing was signed. Eleanor came to me and touched my cheek. Why didn't you call us to come get you? I thought you would be disappointed in me. Her eyes filled immediately. We are disappointed because he failed to value you, not because you trusted the wrong person. Her voice shook. You don't have to explain anything tonight. If you want to stay here, your room has always been ready. If you want to try living with Adrian, we won't make that choice for you either. The questions I had carried for years remained unanswered, but for once they did not treat my mistake as a burden I had placed on the family. Henry cleared his throat. A completed marriage should not be treated as an angry stunt. Adrian, listen carefully. Claire is not a tool for ending family pressure. You have a wife only while she willingly chooses this life. If she doesn't, you let her go cleanly. Adrian nodded. I understand. He made no declaration of love in front of the room. He only placed a box of tissues within my reach. That night, Eleanor opened the bedroom I had used since I was 12. The bedside lamp was still set to the low warm brightness I had preferred as a frightened child. She stood in the doorway for a long time before saying, Claire, wherever you sleep tonight, this will always be your home. The next morning, I went to Ethan's apartment in Henderson to collect my things. When my spare key turned in the lock, I assumed no one was home. Then I saw a pair of silver heels in the entryway. They were not my size. The guest room door opened. Maya stepped out rubbing her eyes. She wore nothing but an oversized men's shirt. The hem barely covered her thighs, and the collar hung loose from one shoulder. I had spent weeks choosing that shirt for Ethan's birthday. I had told him he could wear it when we returned to the Bennett house after our ceremony. Now it was Maya's sleepwear. Her face went white when she saw me. Claire, why are you here? The primary bedroom door opened behind her. Ethan emerged in lounge clothes and stopped short. Claire, let me explain. You don't need to. I rolled my suitcase inside. I'm here for my belongings. My calmness made him more nervous. He moved in front of me. Maya took her grandmother to the hospital last night and passed out in the hallway because of low blood sugar. I brought her back here. She threw up on her clothes and borrowed a shirt. She slept in the guest room. I slept in my room. Nothing happened. Maya's eyes filled with tears almost on command. This is all my fault. I didn't know you gave him the shirt. I'll take it off and give it back right now. She reached for the buttons. Ethan caught her hand. Enough. What is she supposed to wear if she takes it off? Then he looked at me with accusation in his voice. You married someone else yesterday, and now you're here creating a scene over a shirt. Is this necessary? I stared at the protective way he held Maya's wrist, and suddenly every moment from the past 7 years made sense. The first time Maya missed the last train after working late, Ethan drove her home. The second time she had a fever, he stayed at the hospital all night. The third time a client humiliated her, he defended her in front of the entire department. Each time, he said he was only a good employer. Each time I admitted I was uncomfortable, he asked why I could not be more generous. I had not lost to a woman with low blood sugar. I had finally accepted that Ethan had trained himself to place her needs above my feelings. I walked around them and packed my clothes, books, and documents. Ethan followed, explaining without pause. Your marriage to Adrian is revenge. I don't believe you've known him all these years and suddenly fallen in love with him. I never said I loved him. Hope flashed across Ethan's face. I closed the suitcase. But I know I don't love you anymore. The color drained from him. At the entryway, I left my key beside a letter my attorney had prepared the night before. Astra Data had owned the copyrights, source code, and all derivative rights to its core forecasting model from the beginning. Northbridge held only a 2-year, non-transferable license. Any renewal required negotiation between the companies. The expiration date had been written into the contract long before our relationship ended. I resign as Chief Strategy Officer of Northbridge Technologies. Astra's fixed-term license will expire at the end of this quarter, and I will not renew it. The Bennett family office is also ending discussions regarding Northbridge's Series C round. Ethan grabbed the letter. You're trying to destroy Northbridge. Northbridge wasn't built by one person, and it won't collapse because I leave, I said. But you don't get to call my work unimportant and still demand that my company support yours forever. You're mixing business and personal matters. No, I'm following the contract. I am not terminating the license early. I am not taking clients or employees. You never owned Astra's model, Ethan. Northbridge rented the right to use it for a limited period. When that period ends, I have no obligation to keep my work inside your company. Maya stepped forward. Ethan sacrificed a lot for Northbridge too. You have the Bennett family behind you, so of course you can walk away. Northbridge is everything he has. I looked at her. Then stay and help him save it. I pulled my suitcase into the hallway. As the elevator doors closed, Ethan remained in the apartment staring at me as though he had finally understood that I was not waiting for him to say the right words. Adrian lived in a modern house on the western edge of Summerlin overlooking Red Rock Canyon. I had assumed we would continue living separately, but he pointed out that Henry already knew about the marriage. If we vanished into different homes the next morning, the old man would probably move into Adrian's office with a private physician and a list of questions. You can use the guest room or return to the Bennett house, Adrian said, placing a set of keys in my hand. Look at the room first. If you dislike it, we'll change it. Nothing about the arrangement means you have to stay. The house manager led us upstairs. At the end of the hall was a guest room facing the canyon. A broad desk stood near the window. The shelves held mystery novels. White orchids sat beside a warm bedside lamp. I stopped in the doorway. What is it? Adrian asked. This looks like the reading room I described years ago. He paused. I borrowed the idea when the house was renovated 2 years ago. It's always been a guest room. No one has used it. There were no clothes in my size, no slippers waiting for my feet, no evidence that he had assumed I would eventually move in. Only the novels, orchids, and light suggested he had remembered a casual conversation for a very long time. After dinner, he placed a post-nuptial agreement drafted by separate attorneys on the table. It stated that our premarital assets would remain separate, that shared expenses would be negotiated, and that either of us could request separate living arrangements. If I chose to end the marriage, he could not use the Bennett family, the Hayes family, or any business relationship to pressure me. I turned to the last page. No house, shares, or guaranteed settlement. I don't want you to accept anything that makes you feel indebted to me. I proposed the marriage, which means you should also be able to end it without proving that your reasons are good enough. He took another bedroom for himself. He knocked before entering mine. He asked before moving my luggage. When the house manager brought toiletries, he let me decide what stayed. Ethan had often said that because he loved me, I should understand his schedule and accept his decisions. Adrian wrote no beautiful promises into the agreement. He simply left room for refusal in our daily life. After signing, I returned to the guest room. A glass of water sat beside the bed. The curtains remained open. Under the glass was a note. I don't know whether you prefer complete darkness or a narrow gap. Your choice. I woke from a nightmare after midnight and found Adrian working in the study. He closed his laptop when he heard me. Can't sleep. Not really. He did not ask whether I had dreamed about Ethan. He went to the kitchen and warmed milk. Halfway through the cup, I asked, "Did you know Ethan was going to abandon me?" "No." "Then why were you at the marriage bureau?" "Eleanor couldn't reach him. She asked me to bring you lunch. She was afraid you were waiting alone, but she also worried that appearing herself would embarrass you." I looked down at the cup. "Claire," Adrian said, "I am glad you asked me. But I did not arrange what Ethan did. I would never push you into the mud first, so I could be the man who pulled you out." He walked me back to my room and stopped outside the door. "Good night, Mrs. Hayes." It was the first time he had called me that. His voice was quiet, almost careful, like a name he had kept hidden for years and had finally been given permission to say. 3 days later, Ethan blocked my path outside Astra Data's office in the downtown Las Vegas Innovation District. He looked as if he had not slept. The license expiration notice was crumpled in his hand. "We need to talk. Schedule business questions with legal. This isn't about Northbridge." He stopped the elevator doors from closing. Maya's grandmother got worse. The doctors say she could return to intensive care at any time. I waited. He lowered his voice. Maya says the old woman's greatest wish is to see her granddaughter in a wedding dress. Maya doesn't have a boyfriend, and she can't find someone appropriate on short notice. I agreed to take part in a symbolic ceremony this weekend. I had thought there was nothing left in him that could hurt me, but the word wedding tightened something in my chest. It was not longing. It was the humiliation of remembering every promise he had postponed. Ethan and I had toured 3 venues. Each visit had been canceled because of a meeting. We scheduled engagement photographs twice. The first time, Maya went to the hospital. The second time, a project under Maya's supervision failed. Yet one sentence from her grandmother was enough for Ethan to organize a wedding in 3 days. "Did you come to invite me?" His expression stiffened. "I need you to delay announcing your marriage to Adrian. Northbridge's Series C round is about to begin. People have always assumed I would marry into the Bennett family. If your sudden marriage becomes public while I'm seen at Maya's ceremony, investors will question my judgment and the company's governance." At last, I understood. He wanted to preserve his status as the Bennett family's future son-in-law while standing beside another woman in a wedding ceremony. "Have you forgotten that I am already married?" "You're angry," he said quickly. "A man like Adrian Hayes doesn't marry for love. He needed a wife who suited the Hayes image. When you've calmed down, we can find a way to end it. And then we start again." I laughed. "You hold a wedding with Maya. I can seal my marriage and continue lending your company my family's credibility. Once her grandmother is satisfied and your financing closes, you return and tell me none of it counted. It doesn't count. The ceremony is fake. Every time you sacrifice me for her, that part is real." His face went pale. I pressed the elevator button again. "You may fulfill anyone's dream you choose. But stop using my life as the stage." He caught my wrist. "You truly don't care at all?" Building security approached immediately and separated us. At almost the same moment, Adrian appeared from the direction of the conference rooms. "Let go," he said coldly. Ethan released me and gave a bitter laugh. "So Hayes decides whom you're allowed to see now?" When Ethan left, I did not enter the elevator. The security guards had clearly been given instructions before today. I turned to Adrian. "When did you tell security to keep him away from me?" "Yesterday." He did not deny it. "I saw the bruising on your wrist and told them not to let him approach you." "You didn't ask me." Adrian went still. "Protecting me does not mean deciding who may enter my workplace." Ethan crossed a line. "That doesn't give you permission to ignore my choices because you believe your intention is good." The anger left his face. "You're right. I crossed a line." In front of me, he called the head of security and canceled his instruction. He told them to follow my decisions and the company's standard visitor policy. "From now on, if something concerns your work or personal boundaries, I ask first," he said. "I'm sorry." He offered no excuse and did not ask me to appreciate his motives. I nodded. "We have a meeting upstairs." He took the documents from my arm, but he did not choose the route or direct me forward. We entered the elevator side by side. For the first time, I saw clearly that Adrian did not instinctively know how to love me perfectly. The difference was that when I told him he was wrong, he stopped and changed. I founded Astra Data in Las Vegas after college with 2 technical partners. We specialized in supply chain risk forecasting. The copyrights, source code, and improvement rights to our model had always belonged to Astra. When Ethan started Northbridge and had little capital, I granted his company a 2-year, non-transferable license at a symbolic price. I also joined Northbridge as Chief Strategy Officer and helped secure its first major clients. To protect his pride, I never emphasized the relationships and credibility the Bennett family had placed behind him. Business magazines called Ethan a self-made technology visionary. I never corrected them. 7 years later, Northbridge's valuation approached $800 million. Astra still had fewer than 30 employees. For years, I told myself it did not matter. Ethan and I would become a family. His success was mine. Only after leaving him did I understand that loving someone should not require erasing my name from my own achievements. I began separating Astra from Northbridge one agreement at a time. The model license still had 2 months remaining, and I did not end it early. Clients had been developed through different combinations of work, so legal reviewed each account carefully. I did not recruit employees who wanted to remain at Northbridge. Anyone who approached Astra independently had to complete confidentiality review, return data, and finish a proper transition. Adrian read my plan. Do you want Hayes Group to provide bridge financing? Not yet. All right. Tell me if that changes. He did not use Hayes Group to crush Northbridge as Ethan had predicted. A software purchase agreement Northbridge had legitimately earned continued through the normal process. Only the attached strategic investment was withdrawn. I asked Adrian why. That contract was won by a Northbridge team, not by Ethan alone, he said. Taking back what belongs to you doesn't require innocent employees to pay for his decisions. That was exactly what I wanted. Over the next 2 months, Astra moved into a larger office in the Innovation District. I invited an early partner to return and began launching an independent product. Richard did not hand me family money. He told the Bennett family office it could compete in the financing process under the same standards as every other institution. In the end, Astra chose a San Francisco fund with no connection to either the Bennett or Hayes families. On the day the documents were signed, Richard sent one message. Well done. 5 minutes later, he sent another. Come home Sunday. Your mother is baking the apple pie you like. I smiled at the screen for a long time. I had spent years believing my parents did not care. Now I was beginning to understand that some love existed quietly because none of us knew how to speak it. Ethan, meanwhile, grew more desperate. Northbridge's investors learned that I had resigned and that the core model license would expire soon after the proposed financing. They ordered a new valuation review. At the same time, a major project managed by Maya produced inconsistent data, and the client suspended acceptance testing. Northbridge did not collapse because I made a phone call. For the first time, however, it had to face the true cost of operating without Astra quietly correcting its weaknesses. Ethan called repeatedly. He began by asking. Then he accused. You know what refusing to renew the license will do right now. You know the expiration date better than I do. At least renew for 1 year. Why? The line went silent. Because I had loved him, I was supposed to extend the license without conditions. Because I had stood beside him for 7 years, my work was supposed to remain part of his company forever. Even Ethan could not say those words aloud. I ended the call and instructed legal to receive all future communication. That night, I found Adrian in the kitchen using tweezers to inspect a piece of roasted salmon for fine bones. How did you know I won't eat fish with small bones? I asked casually. His hand paused. Eleanor told me. Later, I asked my mother. She looked genuinely confused. When would I have told him that? Maya's wedding was scheduled for Saturday. Ethan originally booked a quiet chapel in Summerlin and planned to invite only a few relatives so her grandmother could watch. Maya argued that the old woman was proud and would recognize a fake ceremony immediately. The event was moved to a luxury resort on the Las Vegas Strip. There was a designer gown, a full floral installation, a band, a photographer, and a reception. Nothing about it looked symbolic. Maya sent me a message. Claire, will you come? I know you and Ethan were engaged, but this is only for Grandma. If she sees you there, she'll believe the ceremony and feel safe enough to continue treatment. I did not answer. On the same day, Adrian and I attended Astra's product launch at another hotel on the Strip. During the event, we announced our independent Series B financing from investors unrelated to the Bennett and Hayes families. The date had been set a month earlier. Once the product and financing announcement went public, several business reporters waiting outside Maya's wedding moved to our event instead. I had not tried to steal their attention. Ethan simply never knew enough about my work to remember my launch schedule. By the end of our presentation, Instagram and TikTok were filled with clips of Maya in a wedding gown walking beside Ethan. In one video, her grandmother sat in a wheelchair with tears in her eyes. When the officiant asked whether she approved of her new grandson-in-law, the old woman looked startled. Maya quickly took the microphone and said her grandmother was too emotional to speak. A few minutes later, Ethan sent me a photograph. He stood beneath an arch of white roses with Maya holding his arm. His message read, "You can look at this and feel nothing?" I did not reply. Adrian took the phone gently from my hand and turned off the screen. The launch is finished. We aren't discussing him tonight. What are we discussing? The fact that you promised to have dinner with me and then accepted another 20-minute interview. His severe tone made me laugh. Is Mr. Hayes filing a complaint about my overtime? Yes. He opened the car door. Mrs. Hayes has committed a serious violation of my dinner schedule. We went to a casual Mexican restaurant in the Arts District. Adrian sat in an expensive suit on an ordinary wooden chair and ordered mild carne asada tacos for me. He also told the server to leave off the cilantro. I studied him. Did my mother tell you that too? Tell me what? That I hate cilantro. Is it difficult to guess? The last time we ate together was 3 years ago. I didn't order anything with cilantro. Adrian looked down at his water. For the first time since our marriage, he appeared embarrassed. A vague suspicion formed in my mind, but before I could examine it, the restaurant television changed to breaking business news. At 10 that evening, clips from Maya's wedding began trending on X. A Las Vegas gossip site claimed the founder of Northbridge Technologies had abandoned his fiancé of 7 years and secretly married his executive assistant. The institutions considering Northbridge's series C financing demanded an explanation before midnight. Only then did Ethan understand that a supposedly private fake wedding still contained a bride, vows, guests, photographers, and himself. It was more than enough to destroy investor confidence in his judgment. He called Maya again and again, ordering her to remove the videos. She cried and insisted relatives had posted them without permission. The next day, a hospital review exposed a worse lie. No physician had told Maya that her grandmother had only a month to live. The woman had been observed after an acute complication. Her doctors warned that the condition could recur, but no one had described her as terminal. When she recovered enough to speak clearly, the grandmother said she had never asked to see Maya married. She had only told her granddaughter to stop sacrificing her personal life for work. The dying wish that justified everything had never existed. Ethan learned the truth in the hallway of the Summerlin Hospital. Maya's grandmother overheard them arguing, tore the pulse oximeter clip from her finger, and pointed at Maya. When did I ask you to bring your boss here and deceive me? The first day you brought him home, I asked whether he had a fiancé. You told me they had already separated. Maya began to cry. She said she had been terrified of losing her grandmother. She said she loved Ethan. She insisted that she had never intended to destroy my relationship. I thought, if he kept choosing to help me, then maybe he cared about me too. For the first time, Ethan did not wipe away her tears. He left the hospital and came directly to Astra. A sudden summer storm had broken over Las Vegas. By the time I finished working, he had been waiting in the lobby long enough for rain to soak through his suit. Reception refused to let him upstairs, so he remained near the entrance until the elevators opened. He hurried toward me. Claire, Maya deceived me. I stopped. Her grandmother never asked for a wedding. Her condition was never as bad as Maya claimed. Maya created all of it. On the day we were supposed to get our license, she said the old woman was refusing medication. At the apartment, she deliberately ruined her clothes. She has been using my sympathy from the beginning. He spoke like a man who had finally found the evidence that would save him. I know the truth now. I've suspended her. I'll repair the damage from the wedding. We can start over. I felt only tired. When Maya lied about needing a boyfriend, you didn't know the truth. Exactly. But you knew I was waiting at the marriage bureau. He fell silent. When she lied about her grandmother wanting a wedding, you didn't know the truth. But you knew we had been planning our wedding for 3 years, and you never made time for it. Claire. When she walked out of your guest room wearing the shirt I bought you, perhaps every explanation was true. But you still told me I was selfish for being hurt. The color slowly left his face. Maya's lies are her responsibility, I said. Believing her, protecting her, and sacrificing me were your choices. Being deceived does not excuse the way you treated me. He caught my hand. I only thought you would never leave. There it was. The truth beneath every excuse. He had always known I would be hurt. He simply believed that no matter how much pain he caused, I would remain where he left me. I pulled my hand free. Then now you know better. His eyes reddened. What about Adrian? Do you love him? I paused. That is between Adrian and me. You don't. Relief made him almost frantic. You're using him to forget me. Even if I haven't fallen in love with him yet, he has never demanded that I surrender my boundaries to prove that I care. Adrian's car waited beyond the glass doors. He did not enter the lobby or remove Ethan by force. He stood beneath the awning in the rain and let me decide when to leave. I turned toward him. Behind me, Ethan shouted, "Claire Bennett, I can wait for you." I did not look back. 7 years earlier, Ethan had led me away from the corner behind the university bleachers. 7 years later, I no longer needed anyone to rescue me from a relationship. This time, I walked out on my own. The longer I lived with Adrian, the harder it became to ignore the details. He knew I drank coffee without sugar, but added 1 spoonful of honey after working late. He kept heating patches in the car because an old injury hurt when the temperature dropped. He knew I disliked being touched unexpectedly from behind, so he always said my name before approaching. Ethan had forgotten many of those things even after 7 years. During a business trip to San Francisco, my return flight was delayed. Astra's travel system automatically sent the change to my registered emergency contact. At 1 in the morning, I walked out of the airport and found Adrian near the arrivals exit. You didn't have to come. I know. He took my suitcase. The system only informed me of the delay. It didn't tell me to be here. I came because I wanted to. The honesty made the gesture feel safe. He had not tracked me secretly. He had made a choice I was free to refuse. What finally convinced me that our practical marriage had never been merely practical was an old wooden box. A pipe leaked in Adrian's study, and the house manager asked me to help move items from a cabinet. The box fell from the top shelf. Its lid opened when it hit the floor. A photograph from my high school track meet slid out, followed by a faded bookmark, a repaired paper crane, and a note I had written when I was 17. Thank you for telling me I don't have to smile when I don't want to. When I become powerful one day, I'll protect you too. I had forgotten writing it. Adrian had kept it for 9 years. At the bottom of the box was an interior design plan dated 2 years earlier. Beside the guest room facing Red Rock Canyon, he had written, "Use the reading room layout Claire once described. Keep as a long-term guest room." It did not say room for Claire. It did not assume I would eventually move into his home. But it included the mystery novels, white orchids, and lamp that did not turn itself off. When Adrian returned that evening, I placed the plan on the dining table. "How long have you loved me?" He stopped in the doorway. This time, he did not invent an explanation. "Since you put that paper crane in my suitcase when you were 17. My heart struck hard against my ribs. "So when I asked you at the marriage bureau, you didn't agree on impulse." "No. Why did you never tell me?" "Because you loved Ethan." He said it without bitterness. "I didn't like him, but you did. If I had told you, my feelings would have become another pressure in your life. Until you said you wanted to leave, I had no right to make that decision for you." "You did make a decision for me once," I reminded him. With security. He lowered his eyes. "And I was wrong. Loving someone for too long can make a person confuse I know what is best for her with permission. I'm still learning the difference." The admission made him human in a way perfection never could. He had made a mistake, but when I named it, he had not defended his pride. He had changed. Still, the depth of his feelings frightened me. I had just escaped a relationship that used love as a reason to occupy more and more of my life. Even Adrian's quiet, careful love felt enormous. I feared that I had stepped from one man's expectations into another man's years of waiting. Adrian seemed to understand before I could explain. He opened his briefcase and placed signed divorce papers on the table. 1 year was our original agreement, he said. It was never a sentence you had to complete. I stared at the pages. The house, our assets, and our companies will never be used as reasons for you to stay. You can leave tonight. I love you because I chose to. That does not make my love a debt you owe. I took the papers and returned to the Bennett house. Adrian did not stop me. He arranged a driver, then sent no stream of messages demanding an answer. When Eleanor saw my luggage, she did not ask what had happened. She simply turned on the light in my old room. When you were young, you left this lamp on all night whenever you were afraid, she said. The first time Adrian stayed here, he noticed. Every time he came home after that, he asked whether the light still worked. I tightened my hand around the suitcase handle. You knew he loved me? I suspected. He asked us not to tell you. Richard came out of his study carrying an old file. Inside were my adoption records, an independent trust, and years of family estate documents. My name appeared beside Madeline's. Every legal document identified me as their daughter, never as a replacement for anyone. Eleanor's eyes filled as she explained that my resemblance to Madeline had first drawn her attention, but 6 months of visits had made her love me for myself. Later, she had kept too much distance because she feared her grief would harm me. Her silence had created the wound she was trying to prevent. Richard sat across from me. We asked very little of you because we feared you would believe adoption came with conditions. But having no conditions does not mean there was no love. Whomever you marry, whomever you leave, you remain our daughter. Among the documents was an email Adrian had sent Richard 5 years earlier. He had refused 2 family-arranged introductions and written, "Claire has the right to choose her own life. If she ever chooses me freely, I will treasure that choice. If she does not, the Hayes family must never use the Bennetts' kindness to influence her." For a long time, I could not speak. Ethan's love had always arrived with a list of everything he had done for me. Adrian had done countless things and used none of them to demand an answer. I remained at the Bennett house for 2 weeks. Astra launched its new product, and the first customer results exceeded our forecasts. Hayes Group entered the procurement process as an ordinary client, and my team forced Adrian's representatives through 2 rounds of price negotiations. One colleague complained jokingly, "Mr. Hayes is impossible." He said a contract won through marriage would damage your brand if the product couldn't earn it. One rainy evening, I was the last person to leave the office. Adrian's car was not outside. I remembered how he always parked in the same place, never honked, never called to hurry me. If I looked up, the headlights were simply there. Now the space was empty. I realized I did not miss having a driver. I missed the man who listened when I said no and took responsibility when he was wrong. I texted him, "Are the divorce papers still valid?" His answer came quickly, "Always." Then I asked, "What about our marriage?" This time, he took much longer. "As long as you want it, that is still valid too." I did not reply. I drove to his house on the western edge of Summerlin. When he opened the door, he looked at the suitcase behind me and asked carefully, "Did you come to collect something?" I handed him the divorce papers and tore them in half in front of him. "Adrian, I cannot promise that my feelings are as deep as the love you've carried for 9 years." He said nothing. "But I want to try honestly. Not because you waited. Not because you were kind to me. I want to try because when I am with you, I don't have to make myself smaller. I can tell you when you're wrong, and you still see me as someone worth loving." His eyes slowly reddened. For the first time, I put my arms around him first. His hands stopped in the air. Only after I nodded did he hold me. "Claire," he whispered, his voice rough, "are you sure this isn't gratitude?" "It isn't." I rested my head against him. "I came back because I started missing you." Northbridge's crisis did not end when Ethan discovered Maya's lies. An internal audit found that while managing a major project, she had transferred testing data to a California competitor without approval. She claimed it was for compatibility testing, but her emails showed that she was also negotiating for a job there and preparing an escape route. The audit uncovered something else. The fake wedding footage had not been posted accidentally by relatives. Maya had sent clips directly to gossip blogs and short video accounts. She wanted public opinion to bind her to Ethan. If the world believed they were married, he could never return to me. Even if he denied the marriage, she could present herself as the devoted granddaughter who had created a dying wish for an old woman. When Ethan threw the evidence onto the table, Maya did not cry. "I wanted one chance," she said. "Claire has everything. The Bennett family, talent, 7 years of your love. She doesn't need you. I had only myself." "So you believed that gave you the right to lie to me? If you truly didn't want to choose me, who could have forced you?"